What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what really moved in, go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi went down 1.04%, largely just piggybacking off the broader market. 15 the low, 1564 the high, and you did see a lot of volume. So 86 million shares being traded, 63 is the average. Looking both on the secondary market and dark pool, you did see a lot of institutions actually buying SoFi up. So they were really fighting against algorithmic trading, which not just for SoFi, but pretty much across the board was adding a certain level of suppression because there was a lot of grayness in the market. So I'll kind of go over that in a second. But while I'm here on the secondary market, 1.5 million, 1.7, 1.6, huge amounts of transactions, and similar nature on the dark pool. So 5.5, 9 million, 13.9, 24, 33, 29. And I'm sure some of you might be wondering, what on earth is happening after hours? Well, a lot of that is linked to options because there was 101,000 options in the money today. So of course, as I always explain, that usually does cause a bump up in the stock price during the next trading day. So Monday, you could see a nice pop up, but it does look as though market makers are covering a lot of that after hours today. So we'll kind of have to wait and see, but during the pre-market, you did see the market relatively optimistic, and a lot of that is because of the states deferring their attack against Iran. So the market saw that as very optimistic, but then you did have some relatively negative data, and then you also at the same time did have Barkin, in my opinion, unnecessarily so, stating that nothing urgent in the data is warranting a rate cut. So you kind of, that's not what the market wants to hear, right? Because even Switzerland yesterday, I believe it was yesterday or the day prior, cut rates. Every single country seems to be cutting rates with exception of the States. So even neutral people on social media, I see them being like, hey, pal, you really need to cut rates like ASAP. You're causing a lot of damage, more specifically to the housing market, and it's going to really damage the economy down the line. So it's kind of a sticky scenario, but the data even today came out not the best. So the manufacturing came in at -4, forecast of 1, and then the rest of the data wasn't all that great. SoFi did actually put out news today, and this kind of piggybacks off of what came out recently, like a week ago or something like that, on SoFi and tip ranks on their SoFi Invest. So SoFi is really investing quite a lot, and hopefully that should prompt some member growth from just their SoFi Invest. But SoFi and Benzinga announced new partnership to power next generation investment research. So essentially you did see during the pre-market this get bought up like crazy, but as per usual, market opens and it just tanks. When it was getting close to that $15 range, I honestly was like, man, this is getting crazy bold. If it closes below 15, that would be insane of a pullback. But luckily enough, market started to pull higher, and that was because of Iran saying that they are pretty much open to negotiating. So I think that's, market saw that as relatively optimistic, came in at the perfect moment. But aside from all of that fun stuff, there was a SEC document, a 144 that was submitted today, and shows that Jeremy, who is a officer, is selling 66,000 shares, and that was done today, kind of matching with some of his other transactions that did occur, one on the 17th and one on the March the 20th. You can kind of see the transactions right there. This was not for tax purposes. This was a straight up sell. And you can kind of see right here, just straight up sell 66,000 shares worth $1.07 million. And so it's kind of interesting. I think it's long past due that some insiders actually did buy, not just transaction code M, so exercising some options, but physically buying some stock. You can see just generally from this chart, they bought in at the very low prices, like the $7 to $8 range, or even as low as $5. And then it gets more and more sporadic. And since ultimately it looks like mid 2024, there's been nothing whatsoever. So hopefully we do see some buying and whatever else, but wishful thinking. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. As far as shorts, they didn't really do all that much. They were a little bit more active in the first half of the trading day. So at that point, they were increasing roughly 800,000. But by the end of the day, it's only 88,000. 12.99% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 141.05 million shares. And cost of borrow minimum for today is negative. So you are seeing some signs of manipulation, but I think that shorts somewhat admitted defeat, that they knew that they were not able to suppress it below that $15 mark. So moving over to options, because I feel like this is a huge catalyst for SoFi, for today at least. So looking here, you had 26 million in calls, 7.64 million in puts, 43% of all the options being done today were bearish in nature. You saw a lot of big money during the last 10 minutes. So between 250 and 255, there was $2 million in premiums. And if we kind of look at this based on the premium oriented, based on that, you see a lot of bullishness. So 599,000 in premiums. That is a 1650 call was purchased. Expiry date is July 11th. So clearly some anticipation for it to continue to move higher. Then you had 290,000 in premiums, $16 call. That is for next Friday, and they did pay 15 cents as a premium, so obviously their break even is 16.50. So again, anticipating for it to kind of move higher. So yeah, big money definitely sees more upside with SoFi, but the big thing for today is this. So looking at the open interest, you have 51,000 at that $15 strike price, 16,000 at that 14.50, 18,000 at 14, 5,000, 13.50, 11,000 at that 13, and so forth and so forth. Essentially works out to be 101,000 in the money options. So you're seeing some of that, like I said, be covered after hours right here. But essentially, they're still outstanding. I'd say 7-8 million, just rough estimate from here. So that does mean you might see a nice bump up come next week. So again, stay tuned for my video over the weekend where I go over some expectations, some things that you need to be aware of, and whatever else. But with it ultimately closing at 15.20, it is trading between this R3 and this R2. So 14.96 was a strong support. And honestly, it kind of bounced off of that general area. And then flip side, 15.85 is that next strong target / resistance, which wasn't really touched whatsoever today. But aside from all of that fun stuff, there wasn't any new analyst ratings, articles, not really much coming out. Some just talking about that 144 that came out, Benzinga news, and that's pretty much it. But on the actual chart, it is staying above a lot of the key moving averages that I like to look at. So the 150, 200, it is above that ALMA. You saw last couple of trading days, quite volatile and very rocky, but nonetheless, SoFi is ready to finally move higher. And as I mentioned in my video, I think it was on Wednesday, if SoFi was to have gone and stayed above 15, this is where you'll easily be able to see 16 to 17 going into next week. And from what we can see from the options that I showed you, big money's assuming the exact same thing. Stochastic RSI rather neutral in nature, so it's not really overbought nor oversold, so that could really help it going into next week. So very exciting day. I know it's still closed red, but honestly, I think it still did do fairly well. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Give yourself a shout out if you bought, if you sold, what did you do with SoFi? And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I do give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.